Do not adjust your sets, all right? This is not Richard Dawson. This is still your boy, James Wudi. Okay, this is not Family Feud. This is not Matchmaker. This is Boy Green meets Wudi. And right on schedule, we are here to talk about the New York Jets versus the Buffalo Bills during my favorite day of the week. It is Third Party Thursday. So stay tuned after the intro to hear who our third party is. Boy Green.
You kind of help us get a jet fan here. Yeah, going. Oh. Okay, come on in. There we go. Okay.
Third Party Thursday.
Chris joining us here on the program with the capital P here on the program.
Wow, what an intro, dude. Boy Green is known for having the intro, but Wudi, that was unreal, man. Thanks for the kind words, man.
We are men of many names.
My favorite Austrian Jets fan right there, baby.
Boy Green.
It's Wudi. Welcome to another episode of Boy Green Meets Wudi. It is your boy, James Wudi. You know I am Wudi, rocking everywhere. And next to me, we have the boy who became king, Mr. Paul Esden Jr. himself, Boy Green. All right, it is Third Party Thursday today on Boy Green Meets Wudi. And we have a special guest. Very, very special guest. All right, she is the co-host of Two Bills in a Pod. All right, but there's only one bill right now. There's one bill on this pod. All right, but that's because 2 + 1 = 3 on Third Party Thursday. So please, as we do math with the 2 + 1 = 3, allow me to introduce Jordan McGee. Come on down. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. That was that was an intro. I'm woken up. I didn't even have any coffee, so that was the intro I needed to get ready for this episode. Happy holidays, both of y'all.
Thank you very, very much. Allow me to be your caffeine whenever needed. That's what I'm here for. And yes, happy holidays to you as well.
And Jordan, I just have to say off the top, it's great to see you. It's been too damn long as far as I'm concerned. Two Bills in a podcast, talking all things Buffalo Bills and everything in between, which is absolutely terrific. And, you know, the last time the Jets and Bills met in the proverbial octagon, the Jets were battling for first place. We just had fired our head coach. So many juicy storylines. And now the Bills have a chance to clinch the number 2 seed, and the Jets got eliminated from the playoffs several weeks ago. So Merry fucking Christmas.
Yeah, well, that's the joy of this season. I will say this has been a very interesting season for the Bills going into 2024. Personally, I wasn't really sure what to expect of this team. I didn't know what this team was going to be. It was sort of, all right, let's just sit back and see what happens. And while there's still a lot of unknowns up to this team, I think one statement is very clear in that if anyone has doubts about Josh Allen's talent or ability, they shouldn't anymore, because a lot of the narratives that we've seen with Josh Allen's career was, oh, well, it was Brian Dable who helped him, become the quarterback he was, or, oh, it was Stephon Diggs who made Josh Allen good. And I think you can say definitively with what Josh Allen's been working with this season, he's shown that he has the talent, and he himself is the reason why the Bills are in the position where they are. He's gotten help, certainly from the coordinator. Stephon Diggs was certainly a huge help, but I think Josh Allen's talent has been showing throughout this season in terms of what he can do with, frankly, less talent and less resources available for him. Josh Allen has stepped up and shown that he can be that guy.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit, because that's interesting. Because before the season, the narrative was, this Buffalo Bills team is going to relatively stink to what they've been. They have Josh Allen, and that's the most important. But the rest of the pieces, people looked at it sideways. So I'm curious, now that we are where we are, and the Buffalo Bills, again, have a chance to clinch the number 2 seed overall in the AFC Conference with a win over the Jets, did people underrate what the Bills had, and it's actually much better than what people thought? Or is it to your point that Josh Allen has just lifted these mediocre, substandard parts that their parents didn't love a little bit higher because he's Josh Allen?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's obviously reasons to why people were going to doubt Buffalo. They had huge changes in the offseason. They just were in cap hell. They had to make a lot of cuts. A lot of guys were traded. Obviously, Diggs going to Houston. A lot of veterans gone, like Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer going to Miami, among, several other of the longtime veterans. So it was kind of a question mark as to what this Bills team was going to be. But I know there was a lot of the conversation about, particularly before the start of the season, that Josh Allen was the most overrated player in the league, which I think was a bit exaggerated. I think, as we get into the NFL season, we like to hype up storylines. We like to see new players come into the fold. And I think a lot of people were kind of expecting the Bills to take a step backwards in the AFC East, and that just was not the case. I think a lot of it, too, with what this team has been this season is, frankly, using more with less. And I think when we talk about the receivers particularly, there's not a number one guy, right? You have Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman's been thrown in there, Amari Cooper with a midseason trade, and then you've got Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox and company. But I think, honestly, a lot of people look at the receivers, and obviously so, because that's, the focal point of any NFL game is the passing game. But I think the revelation for the Bills this season has been the run game. And yes, it's James Cook, but it's also guys like Ray Davis and Ty Johnson who have been contributing really well in terms of the run game. What's been a weakness for the Bills team is that they really haven't had a running game. Devin Singletary was okay, wasn't really much of a threat. But now they have three guys who can run the ball effectively. And then you add in guys like James Cook and Ray Davis who can also be receivers in a Josh Allen offense. And I think that has really spread out a lot of what this Bills offense can be. It's been sort of predictable in years past, but they have a lot more options to play with. And I think also credit to Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator to be able to get creative with play call designs, especially stepping in midway last season after Ken Dorsey was fired. He's been working very well with this offense. So I think it's just been a cultural reset for the team. I think the cuts and decisions that were made allowed the Bills to take a step back and just reevaluate how they want to run the offense, how they want to run plays, and just set a different tone with the team. And it's paid off pretty well, I would say.
You mentioned options, Jordan, and maybe y'all got too many options, because I was sitting somewhere when I found out that Amari Cooper got traded, and I was jumping for joy because he was on my fantasy team. And I said, oh, my God, Deshaun Watson is killing this man's value. But now he's with Josh Allen. Oh, my God. It's about to be Diggs 2.0. Diggs reincarnated. My phone was blowing up. Everybody, what can I get? What can I give you for Cooper? What can I give you for Cooper? I'm like, nah, I'm keeping him, and I am going all the way to the fantasy championship. That was my plan. The fantasy championships are this week. Your boy's not in them. Because I kept Amari Cooper, and he, fantasy-wise, has been Amari Pooper, all right? He has not done nothing for me. The last couple of weeks, I've had to bench him. So let me just ask you, obviously, as a Bills fan, first and foremost, the team's success is more important. But when you got the notification that Amari was a Bill, what were your expectations? Were you expecting him to come in, be Diggs 2.0? Were you expecting him to just slide into the fold? Just curious to know about how that experience was on your end.
I think it was definitely optimistic. I think at that point of the season, the Bills needed more depth at wide receiver. But to your point about him being Diggs 2.0, I think what has contributed a lot to the success is that they don't have necessarily that number one, which sounds kind of odd, right? Stephon Diggs was that number one guy. He was looking for the touches, and he was that go-to guy. But what I think has been a credit to this team and this offense so far this season is that you don't really know who is the number one guy. You can kind of say, well, I guess Khalil Shakir is in terms of receptions wise, but it also could be Keon Coleman. He's shown that he's had a couple games where he can pop off. It could be Dalton Kincaid. It could be Dawson Knox. It could be guys like Amari Cooper too. There's not one specific guy who is the main threat. And I think that almost plays into a benefit for how the Bills offense has contributed. It's not so much one player that they go after. It's not, I use the Vikings as an example, right? Justin Jefferson, he's a number one. You're having to make sure you're putting all your attention towards him. And yeah, this Bills offense is tricky because you're like, I guess we cover Khalil Shakir, but then what about the run game? And then also, what about Josh Allen? Because he can also run the ball too as well. So it's almost kind of like, I don't know how to describe it in terms of, it doesn't look intimidating on paper, but then you're like, well, I have to account for him and him and him and him, because if you leave him open, something's going to happen. So it's been a different shift with this offense in terms of the ability to kind of spread things out, get multiple guys different chances to be the quote unquote star of the game. It could be Keon Coleman one game, it could be James Cook another, and then it could be, going back to Amari Cooper for another game. It's always different. And I think that is, again, more of a team mentality that the team has adopted this year in terms of how they're approaching the offense. It's just whoever scores. I know fantasy football players are hoping for Amari Cooper putting up a lot of touchdowns. So I'm sorry, Wudi, for your fantasy disappointment. But the Bills have been playing much more team football, which is not exactly what you want to hear in terms of your fantasy options.
And by the way, quick thing here. I've made it to the fantasy championship in 2 of our 4 radio leagues. And in one of the leagues, I have Amari Cooper. So I've somehow survived despite his limp body holding my entire team back. But this week I've said I've banished his ass to the shadow realm. I'm like, right now I have Brandon Cooks in the starting lineup over him. But it may be some other random body because I've just had enough. Enough has been enough with Amari Cooper. But interesting question I have here with it. So the Bills in the offseason, when they traded away Stephon Diggs, they were like, we don't need a number 1 wide receiver. Suck it, people. Because everyone immediately said when the Bills did that, oh, okay, they moved on from Stephon Diggs, but they're about to go straight for T. Higgins. They're about to go make there's a greater move at play here for the Buffalo Bills, people were saying. And then they did zip and pip. They didn't do nothing. So then they operated through the season. La, 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 la. Fuck Stephon Diggs. We got our own team going on here. And then they trade for Amari Cooper. So I turn it to ask you this. Even though Amari Cooper's production hasn't been insane, did the Bills admit in the middle of the season that they made a mistake by saying we don't need a number 1 wide receiver? So they moved on from Stephon Diggs, so we're going to go on our own path. And then trading for Amari Cooper made a lot of people go, oh, okay. See, they did need a guy. They just didn't need Stephon Diggs. They needed a different guy. Was that some admittal of a mistake from the offseason, or was just that a unique scenario where Amari Cooper was dirt cheap? You got him for dirt cheap financially, and it was just an opportunity to add another player to the team. Was it admitting a mistake or not?
I don't think so. I think Amari Cooper was an opportunity to add depth. When you look at the Stephon Diggs contract, I think that Bills they were in cap hell, right? They had to look at every single contract, and Stephon Diggs was one of those deals, right? And then you paired it with, behind the scenes issues of, well, it just kind of seems like things weren't working out for either end, so both could use a fresh start. So I think for the Bills, listen, I anticipate them in the offseason, this offseason, next offseason, continuing to add to the receiver room. Because again, Amari Cooper is going to be a free agent. They didn't have to give up a lot for him, so they could bring him back. But if he walks and goes somewhere else, well, the Bills are going to address receiver one way or another. The Bills really aren't the ones to be splashy in free agency. They still have, I would say the last big move they made was the Von Miller deal a couple years ago in terms of free agency. And, it hasn't been exactly the greatest, but Von Miller has been playing better this season, but not certainly the way you would be hoping that $100 million contract the Bills were dishing out to him was. And well, with that, the Bills have to make room. They have to be smart financially, and they're going to have to make moves that they don't like. So going forward, the Bills are going to look towards the draft. They're going to look towards the guys like they brought in this offseason, like Mac Hollins and some of the more cheaper options, because it's just what's going to make sense financially. That's not to say I don't think that they go out and explore their options in terms of, well, do we get a number one? Do they bring in someone like a T. Higgins? I don't think so. Do they look into the draft? Depends on how the draft class shakes out. I think the Bills can always add more talent. I think that's just kind of the way the NFL is going. You have to build more and more younger talent to your roster. We're seeing it with the Chiefs. They bring in Xavier Worthy. Every team is trying to add an arsenal of young receivers, running backs. So it's basically just an arms race offensively, and the Bills are going to do whatever they can. And I think they just saw an opportunity with Amari Cooper on an expiring deal, certainly someone who could contribute and help them right away. And they didn't have to mortgage major future capital to do it. And I think it just made sense given what they were looking for and then the financial aspect of it. They weren't going to, we heard the rumors about them trying to trade for Devontae Adams. That just wasn't going to make sense given that Devontae's contract and where they were in their financial cap situation. So it's just it was just kind of a perfect financial and, the aspect of they needed some depth, and that deal just worked out for what they were looking for.
Again, we're speaking with Jordan McGee, the beautiful co-host of Two Bills in a podcast, baby. And again, I mentioned co-host because you don't host it solo. Your co-host is Daniel Hahn, who was supposed to be joining us, but he had something else come up. He's just sent in a text live on the show. So I was going to read it here. He said, Jordan is likely smarter on this one than me. I'm quite raspy sounding, so she placed me on IR right before the beginning of the show, and Bills by $1 billion. So there was a roster move made. You did place Daniel Hahn on IR. What is that? In the NFL, normally when a player is placed on IR, they're out for a minimum of 4 weeks. I know you guys have some things at play here. There's the playoffs. How long is Daniel Hahn out of commission for? What's going on?
A couple of days. He's got the newborn baby, and
Sure.
As you know, Paul, newborn babies bring a whole lot of germs. So it's a little more than, and you know it very well. Also, congratulations on your second child. I will say too as well. So he's on dad duty, but he's on dad recovery list. So I don't know if there's an IR for dad illness recovery or the DIR.
TBD. Okay, is another one there. But go ahead, Woody.
Yes, congratulations from here as well. I just want to give a special shout out. We got some people in the comments. Mostly roasting my microphone issue, which I'm roasting as well.
It's true.
But Momo Adamo wants us to bring up Garrett Wilson real quick. So I will just say, yes, I do not want to lose Garrett Wilson by any means. I mean, Jordan was just talking about building an arsenal of young receivers, young running backs. I mean, Garrett, that for us, as a Jets fan, that is a quintessential part of that. He is young. He is a talented receiver, and I don't think we have seen anywhere close to his ceiling yet. So, yes, I'm hoping he is a Jet for life. But, if they offer 3 first, But anyway.
Hey, whoa. And let me just address this because there's another comment here from Momo. Is it true Aaron Rodgers and Wilson haven't spoke to each other in quite some time? People. Abraham Lincoln once said, don't believe everything you've seen on the internet. Okay? The fact of the matter is this, people. The comment that people are highlighting from Aaron Rodgers is he said he has not spoken to Garrett Wilson in some time about the target issue, about getting involved in the offense. Literally, they're in the same bleeping huddle every friggin' week. What do you mean? What are they using sign language? How else do you think they communicate with one another? So yes, I'm sorry to unload on you, Momo, but there's a lot of people who have been bringing it up. Yes, they have spoken. They haven't spoken about. Okay, Aaron Rodgers said throughout the season they've spoken about Garrett Wilson's issues of he's gotten frustrated at points the Jets aren't winning games, so he's pissed off about that, aren't we all? And that he wants to be a dominant force in the offense because he believes that will lead to wins. By the way, I agree. Anywho, so, with that being said, they haven't spoken about the target issue in some time. They have spoken. They speak every day. They speak every day in the huddle. They speak every day at practice. Yes, they have spoken, but a lot of hoopla. But see, this is the thing. Jordan McGee's over there in Buffalo Bills land. Oh, which AFC East championship hat am I wearing? Is this the 2024 version? Is this the 2021 version? You just win every gosh darn year, so I'm sure it's very confusing. Okay, so you guys are all delusional with the winning. Ooh, I see magical fairyland land. And Jet fans are, Jesus, it's another losing season. We haven't been to the playoffs in 14 years. So Jet fans and players are frustrated with all that hoopla. When you win, that's the antidote to all of this bullshit. But because the Jets have lost all the time, it just is accented. It's highlighted. Go ahead, Jordan.
That's
I will
exactly. Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Woody.
Well, no, I was gonna say the winning portion of what Boy Green was saying. That's exactly what I was thinking. Is that you guys just winning, putting up banners right nonstop. And my question to you was, if you if you look behind you in this AFC East race, what team do you see? Like, are you nervous of any of these other teams in the division? Of course, I'm talking about the New York Jets, the Miami Dolphins, and the New England Patriots. Or are we all just bottom of the barrel, just terrible, horrible things?
Well, I will speak on this about like the Bills winning of like, yes, the division titles are great, but to me, nothing matters until what do you do in January? Because that's where I'm at with this Bills team. You know, they beat the Lions and oh, that's great. What are you going to do in January? That's kind of where I'm at as a Bills fan is that, yeah, you can win 14 games, you can be the number 2 seed. None of it's going to matter if you don't do anything in January. And that's where it's at where with this Bills team. And you know, 5 straight AFC East division titles. Love that. It's great. But you also have to do something with it. You have to actually progress and show signs that you can be a Super Bowl contender and frankly, beat the Chiefs. That the Bills have yet to do that. So they have still a lot of work ahead of them. And yes, you love when they win, but winning in January is what's going to matter most is can you actually do it? Can you overcome that? Can you get to New Orleans? Can you get to the Super Bowl? That's all that matters. But Woody, in terms of your question with the rest of the division, I think the Jets have potential, but I think it's going to be a matter of, well, one, you need stability in terms of coaching, right? You need to find a guy, and I don't know about y'all, but whatever Ben Johnson wants, you pay him triple because that's how you're going to start. In terms of if you're looking for someone to pay, you're paying Ben Johnson, number one. Number two, you got to have your coach and GM be on the same page. But do you draft a quarterback in this draft class? Do you start young again? Because Aaron Rodgers was not the long-term answer. He was a short-term answer to a long-term game. And it's going to be finding a franchise quarterback that is going to be there for the long term. I don't know if it's this draft class, if it's next year, what it looks like for the Jets. Miami, there's just a lot of questions with Tua. His health. Is he going to be able to play long term? I know he's trying to, but one more concussion could really lead to some very scary, serious health consequences. Things have fallen apart. Is Mike McDaniel still the guy in Miami? I don't know. The Patriots, they're just young and rebuilding. Drake May has shown flashes potentially, but they need a lot of help. They just need help on all sides of the ball. They're there. So I will say for the Bills, they are, until someone knocks them off, they are the team to beat. I think the Jets can certainly get there, but they have to get the right head coach, they need the right GM. They need to have a culture. What's the culture of the Jets going to be? What's the philosophy? Hopefully, not relying on Madden would be helpful. But that's just me. I'm just a humble podcast co-host. So, but I think the Jets have potential. They have the young weapons in Garrett Wilson. They have, the defense, Sauce Gardner. They have all this talent. That 2022 draft class was phenomenal. But it's a matter of getting the right coaching and the right culture in place to have success. And that also starts with Woody Johnson staying the hell out of the locker room and keep your teen sons and get them to go to college or do literally anything else.
Yeah, Jordan, we've got a collection plate of random topics here, I'm sure, to finish off the show. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, even from a Bills perspective of stability and coaching, getting the old man out of the locker room, getting the young kids out of the locker room, getting everybody out of the locker room that doesn't need to be in the locker room, plus Madden ratings aside. Although I guess you could make a case. Madden ratings analytics, right? Isn't that the direction? No, it's not. But Jordan, let me ask you this. There is, every, expert that we're speaking to from the other team. One of the interesting questions is, you mentioned it, the Jets are looking for a head coach and a general manager. And in a lot of the places that have breeded success, that's where it's a copy and paste league. So we've spoken with a Dolphins person before, and people are talking about Brian Flores as a possibility, or this guy, or this guy. In Bills land, the person that is gaining some steam as a head coaching candidate is Joe Brady. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know how high I am on Joe Brady on my list that I would put him. And I can think of 5 or 7 other people I'd want before Joe Brady. But there's a lot of people not named me that are very intrigued by that possibility of Joe Brady ending up as the head coach of the Jets. I'm curious. You guys are like an animal shelter. You know, Joe Brady was a wounded puppy on the side of the road that had some horrible crashes with what happened in Carolina and coming from LSU. And you guys have rehabilitated him, and now he's the OC of this dynamic Buffalo Bills team that looks like maybe this could finally be the year for Buffalo. Is Joe Brady ready to be a head coach? What do you make of Joe Brady as a candidate?
I think in terms of, I think it's 2 versions. I think in the NFL, if he wants to be an NFL head coach, I think he'll need a couple more seasons. I think teams are going to interview him. I think they're going to see what he's about. I mean, he's young. He's in his mid-30s. That is, very young in terms of a head coach. But in all likelihood, I think there's a very strong possibility that he returns back to college football ranks if a certain job in the Power 4 opens up. I mean, that's where he got his start at LSU with Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. That was where he came onto the scene. And college football, there's just a lot of money these days, and you can have a lot more power and say in a college football program. I would not be surprised if, say, a big time job opens up in the Power 4 conferences, that he jumps potentially to college football. He's young, players would connect with him. He certainly could have potential at the NFL, but if he's looking to be a head coach somewhere, I think the college ranks are where he could get a job quicker. And I think that's just something that he's always gravitated towards, especially, being from the SEC and LSU and, having that be his staple. So I don't anticipate him leaving this offseason per se. I don't see a job that would necessarily see him going for, but maybe given a year or two, if there's a certain, big time college football position opening, I could very well see Joe Brady making the jump back to college just because of his age, the experience, the resume that he already has. I think that's salivating for players to want to go play for an offense like that. And again, with that NIL money in college football, you can really run it basically like an NFL team these days.
Let me do a couple of rapid fire here because I know we're getting over on our time here, but that is interesting. I haven't heard that on the Joe Brady college conversation. That's fascinating. Josh Allen MVP, is it him? Lamar just had another great game again. Saquon could break the rushing record, so there's some spicy names. Is this finally the year for Josh Allen MVP?
I think it's going to depend on this game. I think if he, last week against the Patriots, he was okay. And Lamar was having a strong performance. If he has another kind of meh game performance, Lamar has another good one. I think it's going to be very close. Unpopular, I think Lamar should be MVP, but I think the NFL media wants to give it to Josh Allen, and he's earned it. And I think he's certainly been rightfully in that conversation. I think a lot of people just don't want to see Lamar win a 3rd MVP. I think that's just more conspiratorial opinion. But I think Josh Allen is in the driver's seat. He'd have to have a real stinker of a game to kind of lose that conversation. But, that remains to be seen. But I think he has a very good chance of taking it home this year.
What's the motivation for Buffalo? Chiefs have clinched a number 1 seed in the new world NFL. There's only one bye week for the top seed in each respective conference. The Bills, if they beat the Jets, clinch a number 2 seed, but that just clinches you that you play the 7th seed. There's no other prize that I'm aware of, no blue ribbon that the Bills are suddenly rewarded with by getting that. What is their motivation, quite frankly, heading into this Jets game now, knowing that Chiefs result that's in the books, you guys can no longer get the number 1 seed? How motivated are the Bills to do this? Are they going to approach these final 2 weeks as a quasi-bye week and say, hey, we're not really playing for it. The division's in tow. Like, everything's pretty locked up outside of the 2 seed.
It's don't get hurt. That's what you're playing for. Trying to stay healthy. I think, to be honest, you look at it, even if the Bills were to fall to 3, you're looking at the difference between playing the Broncos and the Chargers, which, how much of a difference between those 2 teams are there? I think not incredibly much. And either way, you'd be looking at a matchup against the Ravens in a divisional round if you were to move on. So The difference being, do you play at home against Baltimore versus going on the road? So, there's still something to play for with that number 2 seed, but I think for the most part, you will see the Bills being a little bit more maybe conservative in the second half, especially. It's keeping guys healthy and making sure that they're ready to go for January, and especially the defense to make sure it stays nice and healthy.
All right, beautiful. Jordan, thank you so much for taking some time out of the holidays to join us here on the show. Please give us a free plug to Two Bills in a Pod podcast. I'm not sure outside of these game weeks how much Jet fans may be listening or watching. Nothing to do with you, but just the Buffalo Bills in general. But this specific week, I think it's cool to get a peek behind enemy lines. So give us a plug. What do we got cooking?
Yeah, we're going to drop an episode fairly shortly here after we're done with our conversation. If you're looking to find us, we are wherever you can find podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, at Two Bills in a Pod. We're also on that same handle on Facebook and X/Twitter. We do game day GIF reactions to every game, so you can see my mental state in every football game for the Bills, which is a lot. And then we also have weekly episodes going on Sports War Radio. So make sure you find us there. And if you care to stomach to listen to two Bills fans talk, Jets fans, well, that's the podcast for you to listen to while you think about your next head coach, maybe in Madden.
My God. Yes,
It's
definitely.
all fun.
Definitely doing a lot of thinking. Hey, you have no idea what was on my list of Santa, but I guess he didn't get it because we got none of it so
I
far.
do love this. Amid Hioka says, "Thumbs up for Jordan McGee. Thumbs down for Buffalo Bills." Well, you know what? That's not bad. Not bad. I'll accept that for the impressions of Jordan McGee. That surprises me none. Jordan McGee is absolutely wonderful. So, Jordan, thanks for joining us here on the program, and looking forward to seeing you again here soon, I'm sure. And good luck in the playoffs.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays.
See you guys.